นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอปารุธาเดสังอมัทธัสสะทาวราเยโสรวันทาบมุญชันตุสัทธัง So this evening is the night of the no moon. The waxing moon. The moon starts waxing now. It's good to always watch these cycles in nature. That's one thing. Some people want to form this tradition on the solar calendar, but I've always held out for the lunar one because I found it very, significant for me because you have to keep aware of the phases of the moon, which I'd never ever thought of before I became a monk. I was reflecting this morning, we were doing the Patimokkha in here, and I was thinking that with 22 bhikkhus, and I remember in 1975 at Wat Pah Nanachat, that's how our first impulse, thought of coming back to the West was because at that time we had 22 bhikkhus at Wat Pah Nanachat. And then the Americans fled Vietnam, this kind of humiliating running out from Saigon, and then Thailand became a kind of, everybody thought Thailand would go, because as soon as the Americans left Vietnam, then Laos, Cambodia went communist, and we were in Ubon, right on the borders of Laos and Cambodia. So I looked out at the 22 bhikkhus and I thought, what's going to happen to them when Thailand goes communist? So then the idea, then I had this, we were invited up to Wat Pah Pong for the dana one time, and then somebody brought hamburgers from Burger King. There's a Burger King restaurant, and so Ajahn Chah gave me all these hamburgers to pass out. And because I was one of the monks that would pass out the food, so I gave out all the hamburgers, and all I had left for myself was just a hamburger bun. And so I thought, what a fool am I, passing out all the hamburgers, and I'm the one that really wanted one. And then it's like this Proust, this taking a bite of this cake and tea, and you have some kind of insight or memory. And so I took a bite out of this hamburger bun, which wasn't very delicious, but it did bring back the memory of, first thought of going back to the States. And because I never thought of going back to the States before, just never had been my wish or intention. But with the communists threatening the borders of Thailand and so forth, I took this as a sign. And then 1976, my mother was sick with the swine flu. They had a swine flu epidemic in 1976, and they thought she was going to die. So I went home for the first time. I left America in 1960, the very beginning of 1964. And then in 1976 I went back for the first time with the intention of seeing what would happen, to see my mother mainly, but then I went back with another monk, or a Panyo, Paul Breiter, who many of you probably know or have read his book, Venerable Sir, and a Thai layman who acted as our kind of steward. So he flew from Bangkok to Los Angeles and spent time with my mother. She was getting better, and then we went to New York, and my mother was very happy to see me, even as a Buddhist monk. I think if I'd gone home as a naked ascetic, she would have been glad to see me. By that time, she didn't care what I was wearing. But anyway, and then I went in New York and Boston and that part of the States, and met Buddhists, but nobody seemed really interested. So then to get back to Thailand for the Vasa, I had to go to London, and because I had a free flight from London back to Bangkok through the Thai International Airways. So I spent about 4 days, and if those of you who remember 1976, the summer of 1976 was this hot summer, wonderful weather. You know, people always think of London and England as wet and cold and rainy, but those 4 days I was there, it was just superb. The weather, anyway. And that's where I met George Sharp, and that led me, and he really seemed like the English Sangha Trust and all that was just like like a vehicle ready to go, but there was no driver. You know, they had it all ready, and he had the attitude. Like his attitude, the reason why I came to England was because he just wanted monks to live here. He wasn't exploiting us in any way to come here and teach or write or, you know, set up things or do anything, but just the English Sangha Trust at that time, its main purpose was to support Buddhist monks living in England. And they had this house in Belsize Park, Hampstead Vihara. So I encouraged George to go in Thailand and see Ajahn Chon, ask him about it, and which he did, and that's how I came here. So this idea of seeing the 22 bhikkhus at Nanachat, what's going to happen to them, and then the irony of this morning, 22 bhikkhus, and this is my last Vasa here in Amaravati, and I'm going back to Thailand. So it's like full circle. And I have set up monasteries, or been involved in that here in Europe and so forth. So my intention was fulfilled, or is fulfilled. And so it seems appropriate to go back to where I started. So this is one reason why I'm glad to be able to go back to Thailand. Now the samana life is one of just, you know, somebody after the meal asked me about you know, like lay people have to work and do things and practice meditation. And so I was asking about the Buddhist samana, and I was saying, well, our job is meditation. That's our work, in other words. That's our profession. And so this led into, you know, the emphasis on bhatipata, or meditation practice. So this, you know, this is we have the 4 requisites, and the Dhamma Vinaya. So then this is the package we use for cultivating, for insight into reality. And that's our sole duty, really, is to keep doing that, to keep penetrating through the illusions of samsara till we break through it, and see realize Dhamma, know Dhamma in a direct way, not just ideas about Dhamma or what somebody says about it. So this is like the samana life, we generate this dana, these requisites, because of, the respect the lay community has for our intention to practice and develop and realize ultimate truth, ultimate reality. And so that you might say that's our profession, putting it in those kind of worldly terms. So what is the position of a samana in the modern society? Are we here to be teachers or writers or whatever, and the reason why I came to England was because George Sharp made it very clear that he understood that he wasn't expecting me or demanding or in any way trying to get me to teach or to do anything other than to practice the Dhamma in England. So that's been the kind of the inspiration that I received from George Sharp, and the reason why I came to England, because people keep asking me why I didn't go to the United States. And in the States I didn't find that in those days, 1976. There's a lot of interest, but they were always, it was very much into monasticism was not something they seemed that interested in. And also, everybody, the lay community, everybody likes the Dhamma side of it all. We like the idea of letting go of suffering, and that the Dhamma is all about letting go. And then the Vinaya is about, and this was Luang Por Chah's conundrum to me one time. He said, the Dhamma is about letting go, and the Vinaya is about clinging. And he said, you must find that confusing. And at that time I did, because we were learning the Vinaya and the very strict with the Vinaya. So it tended to be like, emphasis so much on conforming to these rules and these precepts and so forth. And at the same time, there was this attitude of letting go. And of course, notice that just letting go, the opposite, letting go and clinging, are words, are concepts in the mind. So I found in my own life, I tended to like the idea of letting go and freedom and liberation, but the clinging to a lot of precepts and disciplinary rules and so forth. I found something that was going against my own cultural conditioning, which was all about freedom and self-expression and go, living your life for yourself. And then within the structure of the discipline of the Vinaya, it's about duties that we, knowing our duties to each other. So it's but the emphasis was not on blind conformity, but through letting go and clinging at the same time. Because Luang Por Chah said letting go, clinging, to really learn the Vinaya and get established in that structure of the samana. You have to study it and cling to it and develop it and keep, using it to where it becomes your kind of way of living. It's like learning a musical instrument or a dance. You have to do things over and over and over till they become natural, where then they're no longer just affected movements and conditions that seem to make one's life clumsy and difficult, but they become part of the way one lives, the way one operates in the society. Now also consider, we have to live within, we're born into human bodies, which are conventions also. They're structures, they're conditions. So we're stuck for a lifetime, incarcerated in the human form from birth to death. And it's a sensitive form in a sense realm. So then, how do you let go? How do you let go of conditioned phenomena when you're incarcerated in one for a lifetime? And you're in this terribly sensitive, unrelenting sensitivity for a lifetime. How do you do it? How do you get out of the born, the created, the form, the condition? Because just from the conditioned view, from the self view, it seems impossible. How can I, Ajahn Sumedho, ever be liberated from this body or these emotions or memories or tendencies or opinions or views? Is there any hope to get out of it? Or do I just resign myself to it in some way, or just kind of distract myself from really contemplating it very seriously and always looking, trying to live my life in a world, in a dream maybe, or a illusory world that I might be prone to believe in. So this is the challenge, If the planet Earth, it's all about conditioned phenomena, isn't it? What's happening now, like the floods in Pakistan and the tsunami a few years ago, and all these natural catastrophes are, we can't say it's anybody's fault. It's this realm we're in. It's a dangerous realm. And so there's a saying that see the danger in the samsara. It makes you awaken to the deathless, to reality. And notice that so much of our cultural conditioning, and speaking for myself anyway, wasn't about seeing the danger in the samsara. The American dream is not about seeing the danger in samsara. It's about becoming, trying to make things better and better, and be successful and so forth. So, and be, free, independent, self-assertive, on and on like this. The way of the American dream is based on not contemplating the way things are, but trying to make things the way one would like them to be. Try to manipulate the conditioned realm rather than understanding it. So I remember as a boy growing up in the 40s and 1940s, 1950s, I used to read comic books, and they had all like Flash Gordon and futuristic scenes in comic books with pictures of, cartoons of modern cities, in the future with big motorways and like spaghetti junctions and skyscrapers and all kinds of aircraft, wonderful things that seemed to be fantasies back in 1950. But now you go look at any modern city, it looks pretty much like the cartoon that I noticed back in the comic book. And then also, this past decade or 2 decades, it's the technology, computers, internet. All this is to me it's miraculous, because one can do so many things. It's so fascinating, interesting, information just at your fingertips. You want to find out about something, and you go on the net, and pretty soon you've got it right there in front of you, all about this or that, or this person or that person. That used to be a fantasy when I was a boy. That was fantasy world. And so, we have been very successful in manipulating the conditioned realm. We can pat ourselves on the back and congratulate ourselves on being so clever. But also, we realize the meaninglessness of it. The more we have, the more miraculous kind of machines we can invent. It's not enough, is it? We're still bound into the born, the created, the formed, the originated. And then also, at this time, there's so much awareness around the degeneration of overpopulation, of pollution, of nature itself, of the disappearance of various species, and melting of the ice caps, and glaciers, and pollution of the seas and the air, and it goes on with all our ability to create with the conditioned realms, or manipulate. Is it really creation, or is our just clever abilities to manipulate conditioned phenomena into fulfilling our wishes and our desires? And so the result is it's it has certain advantages. I'm not criticizing it, and I certainly enjoy much of it. That I against it, but also recognize that it's not liberation. In fact, one tends to get even bound into it, become addicted to it, dependent upon it. So in Samana life, just notice that this emphasis I've been making a lot on this. There is the unborn, uncreated, unformed, unconditioned. And because there is the unborn, uncreated, unformed, unconditioned, there is the escape from the born, the created, the formed, the conditioned. Now this is my working model for practice. So this is, it doesn't take much to recognize the born, the created, the formed, the conditioned. And then there's this wonderful statement, there is an escape from it. You're not just, even though it looks hopeless much of the time, there is an escape from it. And because there is an escape, because there is the unborn, uncreated, unformed, unconditioned, if there was not this, then there'd be no escape from the born, the created, the formed, the conditioned. We'd just be helpless victims of conditions. What some people have terrible conditioning. We don't always get the best conditions. Most of us have good conditions and not good conditions and mediocre ones. Some people seem to really be victims of fate, like really having a lot of really nasty conditions to deal with. But it isn't about the quality of the condition. It's to try to get out of the nasty conditions into the sublime ones, but to be totally free. There is an escape, because now notice that statement, there is, it's not a supposition, it's not theoretical, it's not philosophical, it's a statement of fact. I take this as a statement of fact. They say, ati bhikkhave ajatang aputang akatang asankatang. It's like, there is. So this is the fact. Okay, it's a fact, but and what is it? We want to find out what it is. And that desire to know something we don't know, isn't it? The desire we understand the concept, and we want to escape from the born, the created, the formed, the conditioned. And there is the unborn, uncreated, unformed, unconditioned. What is it? Where is it? How do I get there? And then, of course, this is the thinking mind, isn't it? The self-view. That comes into it. I'm weary of the born, the created, the formed, the conditioned. I want to escape from it, from birth and death, from the danger of samsara, seeing the endless reiterating, repetitive cycles of this and that going on in our minds, and seeing the changes of the seasons and the aging of our own bodies and so forth. How do you get out of an old body? How do you escape from the sense of yourself as a person, a personality, an emotion, an idea, an opinion? How can you escape from it? Is it like suppressing? Do we just learn how to suppress and deny? Most of us are already good at that. So much of my conditioning was about suppressing and denying. So that doesn't work. Just trying to be positive and be happy and try to seek happiness as my goal in life, or excitement, adventure, romance, pleasure, comfort, success. Or in those of us who take on the samana form, or many of the lay people here have this, intuitive sense. There is the unborn, uncreated, unformed, unconditioned. This is intuition. It's not a fact that you can find on the internet. It's not like that. But it's here and now. It's recognizable. It's reality itself, and that's where this mindfulness, this word mindfulness, sati sampajanya, is the key word. That's the key to the door, the prison cell. How the escape hatch is through mindfulness. So that's our job as samanas, is to learn how to be mindful, cultivate mindfulness. And then that, taken on the level of sakkaya ditthi, or personality view. It doesn't work when Ajahn Sumedho always trying to be mindful. He said, I've done that, started out, I got the point on the intellectual level, and I kept trying to make myself mindful because I was grasping the idea of mindfulness, rather than being mindful, being mindfulness itself. So that's what we mean by awakened, we have to live out our lives within these structures of the human body, and its karma, the way it moves and changes and ages and whatever happens to us, to these forms, success or failure, praise and blame, whatever the conditions might be, that we have no control over, very little control over, but there is an escape not through running away or through denying or destroying, but through knowing, through this mindfulness, path to the deathless, awakening to reality itself. So this is, when I came to live in England, I'd only had 10 years as a bhikkhu, and then I was coming to a foreign country, never lived here before, as a Buddhist monk, and all kinds of unknown factors, and one didn't know what to expect, living in London, and what kind of people I would meet or what would happen. But the thing was, there was this sense of, there was this kind of, because of George Sharp's invitation, and there was a few supportive people who understood what we were doing and the importance of our lives. Hluang Po Cha encouraged me to come here. So I did. But the thing that's always kept me from, being, not being destroyed by all the things that happen to me when I'm out of the context of a Thai forest tradition, out of the safety net of our monasteries in Thailand, was this point of mindfulness. I knew that had the priority under all situations. I always made this the priority, whatever happens to me in this country. This is what I refer to and cultivate. And so over the years, through the various experiences of 34 years I've lived here, this has been the escape hatch. So that, you use it no matter what. Because all of us are going to be subjected to praise and blame, success and failure, happiness and suffering, good health and bad health, respect and disrespect, love and hate, and that's the nature of this realm. And so just because you're a samana, practicing meditation doesn't mean you have an easy ride. It's not, it doesn't mean you're going to get out of all kinds of things. That it means you have that kind of reminding, that kind of direction and intention. So I remember when I was living in Hampstead, before Chithurst, then somebody sent me a postcard, some of you might remember it, of this, it's a cartoon of this man, old man, looking out a window. And one thing that really impressed me about London, being an American from the West Coast, was all the bricks, all the brick buildings. Now I'm used to them, so I don't hardly notice bricks anymore. But when you lived on the West Coast, especially of the United States, everything's made out of wood. Brick buildings, brick houses are not very common, or stone, but everything is wooden structures, frame structures made out of wood. And of course, Seattle is right in the big timber industry area. These big timber companies have stripped the forest there of everything. So I like this cartoon. The cartoon, old man had a white mustache, had a coffee mug in one hand, and he was looking out the window of a kind of Victorian type sash window. You see, one of these sash windows, and then the brickwork. And so you didn't see the whole house or anything, but just the brickwork and the little vent they have, those little kind of filigree vents they have in the brickwork. And then this old man looking out the window, and it's raining, and the raindrops falling into the garden outside, and he's just looking at the rain falling. And somehow I love this picture. I still have it. And it's because in Hampstead, suddenly I was faced with some really heavy situations. And one thing, the EST was a utter mess, and with fighting factions, and then some of the monks that I came with and I didn't get on very well. So you're living in this townhouse in northwest London, and then I'm the focus for all this, So everybody I'm supposed to solve all the problems. And so this brings up the Sakkaya Ditthi, and people see you in that light. You're everything. You're the teacher. You're the most senior. I wasn't that senior to the others, but the most senior. At that time, there were hardly any Western monks that had even 10 years. So that was quite an achievement in those days. Now it's nothing. We've got all these terras all over the place. But in 77, they were a rare species. And so, also, by the time I arrived in England, the Buddhist communities in this country had gone through some rather scandalous problems. So, especially with Theravadan monks and Tibetan monks. So, the head monk at the Thai temple had disrobed and married one of the ladies, and there were other problems, scandalous problems, usually around sex. And so here I come in, I'm not knowing this, I come into this country, and I'm an American too. So if you're American in this country, they don't quite know what to think of you. And being a Buddhist monk, and then the sanya, or the memories of these scandals, recent scandals, was people were pretty, we'll see what he's like. So, coming into a situation completely the only preparation I had, the only survival mechanism that I had at the time was mindfulness. That's all that's the only possibility, otherwise I would have given up. I would have gone back to Thailand. So anyway, I kept watching my mind. And then I kept looking at this little cartoon of this old man with a coffee mug, because I like coffee. And I like these Victorian sash windows and brick facades and filigree vents. That really appealed to me. Especially in Hampstead, you see a lot of those kind of buildings. And then these kind of English country gardens, with hedgerows and flowers, and then these drops of rain falling gently into the garden was very peaceful. That's all I have to do. I don't have to solve all these problems or figure it all out. I just have to look out at the rain with my cup of coffee. And that symbolized to me mindfulness. That's all. I don't have to solve all the problems or set everything straight or do anything special. Just look out the window, watch the rain fall in the garden. And that was such a kind of sense of peacefulness, because notice, like when you feel obliged, when you feel put on by the society you're in, or maybe they aren't doing it, but you feel this because your own habit tendency come up in your consciousness. So when you're the focus, everybody's looking at you, and then you're the head monk. You're the one the English Sangha trust looking to, hope all their hopes are placed on me to figure out how to establish some kind of monastic setting in England. And what am I? And then there's conflicts everywhere. What happens? What is the way to deal with that? And so then I kept this little cartoon, and then the story about Sound of Silence. And during the worst time that all these problems were going on, the first year was the nightmare of conflicts and acrimony. And then I was walking down Haverstock Hill in the afternoon, and suddenly the Sound of Silence attacked me. So Haverstock Hill is quite a busy street, and it was in midday, it was in the afternoon, and suddenly that's all I heard for a few seconds, just this vibration. And it stopped all this kind of tendency of the mind to proliferate and feel, dwell on my, be caught in my own reactions to the situation I'm in. And I noticed this in Thailand in the first year when I was a Samanera. I became aware of it, but I never really cultivated it till I went to live in London. And so I've always been grateful. I know exactly the spot in London where it happened. It was such a astonishing. And then I started cultivating this. And eventually, I began to use it in the midst of, because I found it gave me a reference point to let go of the emotional reactions I was having. Because if you're in an AST at that time, there was two sides. One wanted to stay in London, and the other wanted to sell the Hampstead Vihar and move to the countryside. Of course, I wanted to move to the countryside, but then there was a faction that didn't want that. Wanted to stay in Hampstead, because Hampstead is quite a nice place to live if you're in London. And quite upmarket, I think. It's considered, a lot of quite renowned people live in that area. So, anyway, when you get in the middle of these bitter arguments, then you get pulled around by people's emotions and your own. I remember this old man looking out the window, sound of silence, and I began to notice I could actually stop just being emotionally kind of like a yo-yo, going up and down with the vibrations in the room. I could actually steady myself in this state of poise, attentiveness, where I'm not shutting out, I'm not repressing, denying, I'm just not getting caught up into, I'm not letting the conditioned world obsess me or take me over. Well, at first I could only do it for, not very long, but at least I began to get the point of it, how to cultivate it, how to develop it. And it did give me a sense of being able to work with a situation, that it wasn't, if on a personal level I felt it was impossible situation, but because I don't believe in the personal, then, I did, and I had this, I thought it just bear with, this is my path, this is the way I cultivate this awareness with this stillness. Because when I recognize and rest in this sound of silence, then I'm able to discern suffering and non-suffering, discern the difference between self and non-self. So then this teaching of there is the unborn, uncreated, unformed, unconditioned, and then this particular teaching suddenly said, this is it. This is the unborn, uncreated, unformed, unconditioned. Because as I began to appreciate it, recognize it, and cultivate it, then I could actually witness, observe the suffering I create by getting caught up in the born, the created, the formed, the conditioned. And so, there's this discerning, this sati sampajanya, sati panya. It gives you these words like mindfulness, wisdom, ability to discern suffering and non-suffering. So emotionally you can be suffering, you can feel upset or disappointed or angry or whatever, and that can be, maybe that's your karma for the present moment. The conditions for being upset are like this. But trusting in this awareness then, if I really trust it and surrender, let go totally of the born, the created, the formed, the conditioned, it's non-suffering. I can discern it. There's a discerning ability. This is what panya is, wisdom. To know suffering and non-suffering. Now we have to live in this realm till we die, so it's just the way it is, through the aging process of your own body, through the successes and failures and praise and blame that is part of our karmic inheritance. This realm And then we can see the danger in the samsara of being attached to it, being deluded by it, being kind of obsessed with it in our various ways that we deal with the samsara, with the conditioned realm. That it's just an endless kind of vortex of changing conditions. And there doesn't, when you're caught into it, there seems to be no way out of it. It just seems, that's why, one takes to drink or commit suicide or does something, to just relieve the hell of being in this swirling vortex of change. Or, as the Buddha encouraged us, to awaken to it, not to destroy samsara, not to annihilate the conditioned realm, but to understand it, to know it, to discern it, recognize it. It is like this. Conditions change according to other conditions, so you can't find any stable conditions, that you can depend on to always be there and give you security. The conditioned realm, as a very nature, is insecure. Like Luang Por Chah, my na, it's always uncertain, insecure. That's its nature. But there is the unborn, uncreated, unformed, unconditioned. And because there is the unborn, uncreated, unformed, unconditioned, there is the escape from the born, the created, the formed, the conditioned. Now, escape might sound like, that can be an English translation. It sounds like we're running away from something. So, really, don't take words too literally. They're merely kind of expedient means, the words we have to use. But it's good enough. It gets the point across. There is a way out of it, that we're not just helpless creatures caught in a web, in a vortex of change. That there is the way out of it. And it's not through destruction or through magic. We don't create another superior vortex to live in. More sublime one. We awaken. And that's why it's so important to recognize this realm the way it is. Planet Earth, human body, sense world, having eyes, ears, nose, tongue, such a sensitive form as your own body, having to live with it for a lifetime. This is, and then we tend to identify with it. We cling to it. We believe it's me. Everybody affirms. They think this body is Ajahn Sumedho. You all look at me and say that's Ajahn Sumedho. On a conventional level, I say I'm Ajahn Sumedho. But the escape isn't Ajahn Sumedho. It's knowing, awareness, awakened attention to the way it is, and that's intuitive awareness. Or it's a sense beyond the sense. It's intelligence, it's universal intelligence. It's not about knowledge you get from books, from the conditioned realm. It's universal wisdom, universal knowing. And we can actually realize that within these, whatever form, whatever condition your body's in right now, or mental states you're having, there is the escape from the born, the created, the formed, the conditioned. So that's quite, that is a wonderful thing to know. It's like the good news. The Christians call the Bible the good news and things like this. But this is really, to me, more inspiring even, because it's very practical, and it's not about believing in things. It's through investigation, through your own kind of efforts and willingness to really look into and observe, and to trust in your ability to observe your feelings, your emotions, your sensations, your habits, and to recognize the realm that we're in is like this. This is not, a peaceful heavenly realm. This is the planet Earth's like this. One time, you look at, they dig up all these relics of dinosaurs, and you think, God, what would it be like to live, at one time, millions of years ago, there were these huge dinosaurs running around here. Some of them are enormous, and they're kind of very sharp teeth and frightening creatures. What are they doing? How did they get here? And when we look at what we call evolution, and then suddenly we find ourselves at this time and this place, in this rather delicate form, our human body, with the floods, earthquakes, typhoons, tsunamis, and volcanoes and all the rest. We're in a vast universe. It's so vast, it boggles the mind. You just can't fathom the wonder of the universe we're in, because we're just like this little flea on it, aren't we? This little body looking up at the sky. And from this position of being nothing much in particular, no matter how important you might think you are, actually, when you put yourself in the position of just like a flea or a termite or something, and then this incredible changing conditioned universe in all its wonder and horror all around us, going on to infinity. And there's an escape, not through denial or destruction, but through understanding. So the escape is the unborn, realizing there is the unborn, uncreated, unformed, unconditioned. It's reality itself. Nothing fantastic, nothing that you have to, become God to understand. You don't have to know everything about everything. You don't have to be born as a God to get a better perspective on the conditioned realm. And this is what the Buddha was pointing to. Within this, the very limited form that we find ourselves in, we have this ability to realize the deathless, to awaken to reality. And that's what the teaching is all about. This marvelous teaching we have. It keeps reminding, like using the Four Noble Truths and these teachings from the suttas. They really, not to just be some Pali scholar or authority on scriptures, but apply them, because they're pointing, they're reminding us. But it's not just trying to figure it out with your brain, but actually looking, it's very clearly spelled out in the Four Noble Truths. Suffering, understanding suffering has been understood. These three aspects of these noble truths is a reflective form. It's just not three facts that you have to memorize, but it states the first one. The first one, there is suffering, is the intellectual one, is the statement. Bhariyati Dhamma. And then the second aspect, it tells you what to do. It's bhati bhata, practice. It should be understood, suffering, and then the third aspect is the insight, what they call bhati wait. Suffering has been understood. So this is like this I call a reflective paradigm. It's innate in the Buddhist teaching. It's not about believing and grasping Buddhist teachings and trying to become a Buddhist and all that, but it gives you very clear practical instructions on something so basic to every human individual about using suffering. So that's not a esoteric experience, isn't it? It's not sublime or refined or special. It's ordinary suffering, for this is a realm of change. And it changes according to conditions we have no control over, so we experience it as suffering. But then our awakening to suffering, is the escape from. We still feel, we still have our karma to live with, but we're no longer blinded, limited, ignorant around it, because we have that insight into the deathless reality, amatta dhamma. So that's why when I give these talks, they say, aparuta desang amatasatawara e sodawantaba munchantu satang. That's the gate to the deathless are open. To me, that's perfect. That's such a relief. The Buddha said this. And then, do I know? When I first started that, what? Do I really know? A lot of people say things like that are crazy. People have told me they were God. I've met people come and tell me they were God or the Messiah or Maitreya. But it obviously struck the intuitive sense in me, because it was something. It wasn't based on the kind of on the ego at all. It's a statement. There is the gate to the deathless is open. Ye sodawantaba munchantu satang. Have faith in this. It doesn't mean to believe in something called the deathless, but it's much more practical. Trust this. Put your trust in this. No, begin to awaken to this gate, this deathless gate. Find it. It's here and now. It's not something you have to find or, seek for in any other place, but just awaken. Learn how to pay attention to life. Be the awareness itself, rather than trying to become somebody who becomes aware in the future. So, in the past few years, I've kept emphasizing these three fetters, first three fetters that blind us, that are the obstructions to the path. The Sakya Ditti Silabhata Paramasa Vicikicca. So, and the reason why, because until we actually see through those fetters, we're just caught in the samsara. We kind of maybe get inspired. Maybe you get inspired by this kind of talk or this kind of reflection or whatever. But inspiration is not it. It gives us maybe the interest and impetus. But then it really takes this determination. No matter what happens, the old man with his coffee mug looking out into the garden at the rain falling, sound of silence. So I'll leave you with this.